My name is Alma Iridia Barranco-Mendoza, and the story of our product actually started in 1990 when I was fortunate to have obtained a scholarship for studying in Peterborough, Canada, in Ontario, and there I met in Trent University my husband, the professor Deryck Persaud, that back then he also was an international student originally from Trinidad and Tobago. There we studied our bachelor's degree, me in mathematics and computer sciences, and he in biology and biochemistry. From there, we started continuing studying postgraduates, me in mathematics applications to social and natural sciences, and he went to study food engineering at Well University. And later, we did doctorates, me in artificial intelligence applied to medicine, and he studied molecular biology, also applied to medicine. And well, we got married and he started working for a pharmaceutical called Activars Pharmaceuticals, developing Alzheimer medicine, specifically synthetic fatty acids that help to the brain functioning. And I started working at Trinity Watson University as a professor in biotechnology and computer sciences, and my research area was specifically diagnosis systems for cancer and diabetes, and I also was founder of the Research Center for Aging and Chronic Diseases back there at Trinity Watson University. And then my husband went away as an investigator to British Columbia's Cancer Research Center, one of Canada's most important research centers, and there he studied the fatty acids' impact on cancer, specifically inside the brain and the eyes. And afterwards, during this time, was when our children were born, a couple of twins, Amir and Daniel, and there was where really ended our simple life and truly started the story of complications, because we noticed a tremendous difference referring to the development of our children. One of them had a normal development, Daniel, and Amir, that is his twin, started having different types of problems that we didn't know what was really going on with him. And that's when we started trying to investigate, well, what's happening? And it surprised us a lot because his development was very different to his brothers, and he started having situations that he couldn't sleep, didn't develop his language, his attention was very different, didn't have any at all, didn't interact with anyone, everything bothered him, he had hypersensitivities of every type, he had many anxiety problems about fears, problems about sensory hypersensitivity, so every texture bothered him, sounds bothered him, the lights, he had tremendous terrors and nobody really knew what was happening. So for a long time we searched, and at 4 years old he was diagnosed with autism, pretty severe. They told us he had a level of autism that he will never be able to talk, he will never get out of diapers, he wouldn't have social interaction, and his future truly was terrible, actually. His predicted development wouldn't be more than 4 years old. Amir, at that time, was a child that had many fears. As I mentioned, he had a lot of hypersensitivity to many factors. So one of the situations that occurs with autism is that it's part of the spectrum of brain hyperactivity, which means his brain is working at triple or even quadruple times more than a neurotypic person does. So for him it's very difficult to filter different elements. For example, when a normal person is talking to you, you focus on the conversation and can block the ambient sounds, the sensations, the sound. Nevertheless, he couldn't do that. So for him, it was the same to listen to his mother talking than feeling the wind, or his clothes texture, or ambient sounds, or smells, or tastes. For him, all the impact, any element of his surroundings, caused him the same impact. So he couldn't decide what things were important and what things weren't, which is very determinant for a child's education. Because kids, when they learn, they are based on their mom's praises. When they tell them, "Oh, good job, darling, you did great," or the punishments that are not really punishments, but like the mom gets sad or saying don't do that, and they don't do it anymore for the same reason. It's a negative stimulus, while positive stimulus promote that people learn to do certain things. In the case of Amir, having everything at the same level, he couldn't learn. All for him was identical, and he based himself only on instincts, so that was really problematic. Besides the fact that he couldn't sleep, kept him at a very high level of anxiety that provoked he had all sorts of emotional tics. He couldn't focus on things, and he had other problems. In addition to these typical symptoms of autism, he had a problem called Craniosynostosis, which is that the layers of the skull merge in a premature way. In typical persons, those layers of the skull merge around the age of 9, and he was 4 years old when his layers were completely pressed, merged, and that was causing pressure on his brain, which was also affecting his motor system. And he, at the age of 5, couldn't even hold a spoon so he could feed himself. He walked weird, he had his arm folded like this all the time, and he didn't have pain sensibility, which caused a lot of problems in the sense that, well, he was hurt, and unlike in normal people, when you feel pain, you stop doing certain things. But by not feeling pain, he was hurting himself tremendously. So it was very, very dangerous because an hyperactive kid without control and without pain sensibility could have many, many problems. So when they told us this regarding Amir, we had to take a decision because it required a surgery where they had to reconstruct his skull that implied a surgery of more than 12 hours, where the recovery lasted more than a year, and Amir required complete care 24 hours a day for 365 days. So my husband and I had to make a difficult decision in which one of the two had to stop working to be able to take care of Amir during his recovery. And since I was the vice president of technology of the university at that time and my salary was higher, my husband decided that he was leaving his job at the Cancer Research Center. Besides, he told me a thing that really caused me a lot of impact. He told me, "I could find a cure of cancer tomorrow, but no more researching nothing about autism." Back then, there were no studies about autism with respect to the medical situation. It was believed that a child developed autism because his mother was very cold with him or that she didn't give him attention and so. But thank God I had twins, so I knew that wasn't the case because in a matter of environmental stimuli, my sons received the same, lived in the same house, ate the same things, received the same attention from me. Nonetheless, one had a perfectly normal development and the other didn't. Then we knew that the belief that the mother was the cause of autism was not the true one. So we knew that there had to be something else, and my husband decided to devote himself literally in body and soul to the study of autism. Then, from that moment, he left his job in the Cancer Research Center and we turned our house into a laboratory. He started studying all the differences between Amir and Daniel. For being twins, we had a great control in the sense that we could determine which things were environmental, which things weren't, and the big differences between them referring to their interactions, with how the different food affected them, how vaccines affected them differently. They received the vaccines exactly at the same time, so we could make blood analysis. How was his reaction with respect to them, and the same that in their education. They were in the same school at that time, but obviously Amir didn't have language at 6 years old. He didn't have a social reaction. Actually, he was like, well, in a purely instinctive way interacting with the world. So that's when my husband, based on the studies he made many years prior about Alzheimer, he began to notice similarity with respect to the attitudes of autism with the attitudes of the Alzheimer patients. Those inexplicable fears and ups and downs of energy that were unstable. So there was a lot of energy and then suddenly a fall of fatigue, having a disorientation in space, staying suddenly still like that without reacting and suddenly reacting when they were spoken to or not being able to sleep. Amir, I had to give him an adult-sized melatonin pill so he could sleep 3 hours almost since he was born. So he was exhausted, I was exhausted, everyone was exhausted because nobody slept because the kid didn't sleep. So that is also a very common symptom of Alzheimer. Then, since my husband had worked with in the Alzheimer for many years doing research on the impact of fatty acids on the brain of the elderly with Alzheimer, he said, well, Amir has fatty acid problems. He has a deficit. We need to compensate with a supplement. So we started searching on the market a fatty acid supplement, and it turns out that only the most you could find in the matter of the fatty acid complex were 3 fatty acids, omega-3, 6, 9, but nothing that was the full spectrum that the brain requires, that are 14 different fatty acids. So my husband said, well, I'm a scientist, I'm going to develop my own product so I can give it to my son so he can have the kind of food that he requires, so he creates that necessary balance for the creation of fatty acids. And we continued studying. My husband started developing the product inside our home. We converted part of our house into a lab and he started to develop this product. Since we're both scientists, we got involved in like 7 different international studies of autism. Then we were constantly followed by several groups to see how Amir was progressing as part of their studies. And one thing that seemed very interesting to them was that when we started giving Amir his fatty acids, the group of people that was at his development level 2 started to develop, but there was a stagnation, more or less about 3 to 4 years, and they didn't progress more. However, Amir started progressing more and more and more and more and more and more, to the point that he started talking. When they said he wasn't going to be able to talk, he learned to go to the bathroom, he learned to bath himself, to have all kinds of, well, all that a normal kid would do regarding his personal development only a few years later. And he continued developing. He now has 15 years, his brother too. Both of them are in high school, second year of high school. He speaks, he studies. The most part of the courses are the same the ones his brother takes. Well, he has certain deficits in abstract issues. They still continue to cause him problems. However, he assists to humanity and science classes, and he likes, for example, to cook. He's taking a course to be a chef, goes to the choir, has friends. That is something that really surprised the research teams a lot. Then they ask us, well, what are you giving him and where can we find it? And that's when we told them that we developed a supplement for him. So they told us, well, Alma, the thing is, you have to share this with the world. You should market it. So that's how we started. Fatty acids are one of, let's say, the bricks for the human cell. So there are 4 fundamental elements in the cell. You have proteins, water, sugars, and fatty acids. Those fatty acids form the cell layer that keeps the cell hydrated. So it's a full spectrum which is composed of 14 fatty acids that are long, medium, and small chain, and their function according to the cell is to protect the cell from getting attacked by viruses and other organisms harmful to the cell. Keep it hydrated, absorb nutrients, discard toxins, and create communication between cell and cell. For example, our brain is made of more than 40% of the cellular structure. These are fatty acids. Then, that communication between neurons is completely dependent of the structure of fatty acids in our body. The situation is that more than half of those fatty acids that conforms the full spectrum, our body does not produce them. So we have to ingest them. And the problem with our current nutrition is that many of the products that we consume in a regular way are already very adulterated. They are manufactured, they already have a production process, a lot of light foods have their fats removed, but not only bad fats, but also good fats that are the fatty acids. And the problem is that with the commercialization of products and the creation of pesticides and others in our plantations is degenerating the quality of our food. And the problem is that by creating a fear to fatty in general, but specifically to fatty acids, one creates a deficit, and by not producing them ourselves degenerate because they do not have that molecular structure that requires the complete spectrum and what keeps ourselves healthy. While maturing in the aging process, well, by not consuming the fatty acids that we require, well, our body starts degenerating. So things like our hair, our skin, our eyes, bones, blood, and obviously our brain degenerates and is what causes the common problems of aging, like dementia, Alzheimer, anxiety, wrinkles, osteoporosis, the lack of sleep, and more, because fatty acids are critical for many natural processes of our bodies. For example, one of the very important things that have fatty acids, which are the transporters of your body, of the different enzymes that close the metabolic cycles of our body, like sleeping. So, our body, when the night comes, generates an enzyme that goes directly to the brain so it can start the production of melatonin. But that enzyme, when it is generated, it's wrapped in a layer of fatty acids that goes through the blood flow to the brain and is what starts the process of production of melatonin, what makes you sleepy when you go to sleep and makes you have a calm dream. By not having the fatty acids, then our body does not produce that melatonin in a natural way, so we cannot get to a deep sleep cycle, and this is fundamental for our brain restoration, because in the past it was believed that neurons did not reproduce. However, they do reproduce, but only when you get to that cycle of deep sleep of rapid eye movement, or a REM sleep by its acronym. But if you don't sleep because your melatonin isn't being formed, then your neurons never get to regenerate. And it's a problem because think, when you don't sleep, that's when you are anxious, you're tired, you can't focus, your understanding about things like it's not the same. Likewise, the production of energy is not the same because you're tired and so. Another metabolic cycle in which fatty acids are really involved is in the process of digestion and the sensation of satiation. So when you're eating and you reach a limit, our stomach generates an enzyme, also that again it is covered with fatty acids, and it goes to the brain and it tells the brain, I'm full, stop eating, and so you stop eating. So people that are on diets because they don't eat fats are always hungry. So it creates a very strong biological imbalance with respect to people and their alimentation. Another aspect in which it affects greatly is in blood flow. The blood is made up also of several fatty acids, that is what creates the fluency of serum flow, and all the different blood molecules. And those molecules, by having the full spectrum of fatty acids, they flow very lightly. The fatty acids, the full spectrum, is a very light oil that doesn't leave residue. Nonetheless, when fatty acids break their structures, either by oxidation or lack of elements, it starts to create a bigger density, so it starts to leave much more waste. So that's what creates, for example, bad cholesterol that sticks inside veins and arteries, and the blood flow is blocked to the point that it can create cover a vein, create an embolism or a stroke, or it can even affect the heart. Because look, your heart will be like a balloon. If you put inside a light liquid like water or an oil like, for example, olive oil that is very light, when pressed it comes out. You don't require a lot of strength for everything to come out. However, if you put in caramel, well, it requires a lot more strength to be able to get everything of that balloon. So that's what happens with our heart. When our blood is very dense, because the full fatty acid spectrum is not present, a density greater than is normal is created, so our heart works in an additional way that it should, and that is what creates the cardiac problems. The ventricles of the heart do not close as efficiently as they do when the blood has, well, a normal fluency. So also it creates problems with the ventricles of the heart and the veins, and all our circulatory system. Another system that is affected a lot is the bone system, because the bone cells, also like all cells, are made up of fatty acids that maintain the cellular integrity. When that integrity of the cellular layer is broken, things like calcium are lost, and is what it generates issues such as osteoporosis. And in our personal case, we have the example of our other son, Daniel, that he had a problem in the bone called an unicameral cyst in the upper part of the femur that was simply a hole in the bone. Much of that cysts are cancerous. Fortunately, his wasn't, but it created a weakness of the bone in such a way that it reached a point that broke the bone, almost loses his leg. Fortunately, he didn't, but he had a series of surgeries, and the bone didn't heal, and they had to do a bone graft on his hip. He was several months in recovery, but it didn't heal, and the bone didn't solidify, to the point that, well, we were afraid that another hole would be made again. But when he started taking fatty acids, it was noticed that the integrity of his bones became more solid, and we have the studies of his x-rays, how by introducing fatty acids to his bone, it has become more complete. Another process that is also affected with respect to fatty acids, and that's very important for people with diabetes, is the management of energy. When you eat your sugars, very high peaks are created with very quick drops. So, for example, when a child eats sugar, it's hyperactive and suddenly bam, he has a crash, right? That he falls asleep and requires more energy. That is what happens to all of us. Instead, when you have energy from fatty acids, it's a much wider curve. So then the energy maintenance, it's more constant. Then one doesn't require that food so continuously, and it manages the energy in a better way, and it doesn't have those strong descents either. For example, diabetics, they need fatty acids so they can keep their energy in a more balanced way, because their pancreas is already damaged, so that energy regulation of sugars, it's already broken. So for them, if they eat sugars, it makes a lot of bad. They have those tremendous ups and downs, and yes, it starts to damage several other parts of their body. So energy management for them through fatty acids, it's important because it maintains in a more balanced way and better. And well, many other systems as well. Anxiety issues, our nervous system, also fatty acids. People who have symptoms of attention deficit disorder likewise has those problems as autism, where the brain doesn't have the necessary elements. Based on these studies that have been done with respect to fatty acids, and all of my husband's studies from 20 years ago, even before Amir was born, we really started to see it had a great impact regarding to the health of our children. And well, many people started to ask us, well, how can we get that product? Because, well, Amir, his development is out of context compared to the other children at the same level of deficit that he had in the beginning. So we started to search the way we were going to develop this product already commercially. We went to Health Canada to obtain manufacturing permits, and they authorized to us the product as a natural dietary product. And Health Canada is a health organization similar to HOFEPRIS in Mexico. However, it has much more strict restriction levels than any other organism in the world with respect to natural products. They consider natural products almost to the same degree as medicines. So it took a few years to get that permission because they require your lab tests, clinical analysis, purity analysis of all processing, manufacturing, storage, and transportation. So we generated all that material. The lab in our house had to be approved by Pfizer Health, that is another health agency that analyzes the manufacturing and production centers, so that we had a clinical laboratory level ranking. And we started our production of the product all ready for it to be distributed within Canada 2 years ago. And now we have the intention of entering it into Mexico, because it's a market that is also very open to the issue of natural products. And me, as a Mexican, I really had the desire to share these results. As I tell my husband, for me this product is like already valuable. As a mother, actually, when you see a child that they tell you, well, it's never going to talk, it's never going to have a social interaction, it's never going to be able to become a productive person, it's going to be a burden on society, well, you say as a mother, well, it's my son, I love him, I'm going to take care of him, but what happens later? When I die, who's going to take care of this child? And so many other parents, which is a very hard situation for parents who have children with special needs. So that my son already has a level of independence in which he will be able to take care of himself. Now him at age 15 already cooks, does his own laundry, he takes care of himself for his personal needs, he has friends, he goes to school. Well, he has certain deficits in social issues, but really not that kind of deficit that he had before. Like, it's a reality that he is going to be independent and is going to be a productive member of society. Me, as a mother, I no longer have that fear that when I pass away and I'm no longer present in this world, my son will be able to be independent and is not going to be a burden to others. I hope to transmit that same tranquility to other parents, and really by sharing our product. Right now in Canada, we already have hundreds of people that take the product, and the stories they tell us are extraordinary. It is wonderful to hear a mother with a daughter with eczema since she was born, who required steroids and that her skin was bleeding daily, that she tells me after taking the product many months. And we also have other products more specific for the skin that is the same concept but with vitamin D, because the skin requires additional vitamin D and has a more pleasant scent, that the child suddenly writes me and says, my daughter for the first time in her life has normal skin. She no longer requires steroids, she no longer requires that her skin no longer bleeding or that it's irritated with it. It's incredible. The old man that couldn't even walk to the corner because he got completely exhausted, that he told us, is that my energy is already more balanced? Today I went to walk 1 kilometer that I have been here since I walked for so long because my energy is better. Or the exhausted mother, for example, in my personal case, one of the things that has helped me a lot with NeuroActiv is that when my children were born, I always said I had 2 babies and a lobotomy, because I had an excellent memory before my children were born, and when they were born, well, I couldn't, if I didn't write it, I already forget it. And what happens is that, as I previously mentioned, half of these fatty acids our body doesn't produce them. So when in the process of gestation, the baby absorbs all the mother's nutrients, and if the mother already has a fatty acid deficit, well, with the babies even more. So every fatty acid I already had went to my children, and I was left with a deficit even bigger than the one I already had at that time. And well, yes, my hair became very opaque, my nails brittle, my skin was a problem, and my brain obviously regarding my memory. And with the NeuroActiv, once again I have reversed skin health. For example, issues of wrinkles, I had already started to get a tremendous amount of wrinkles. My skin is normal. I always suffer from acne, and with NeuroActiv for skin, we have been able to balance that, and it's incredible. You say, like, you're going to put oil on your face. Well, yes, because what happens is that it's not oil, not any oil, but the full spectrum that creates that balance in the skin. So yes, at the beginning, like, the pimples on my face increased, but because it was encapsulating the toxins that I had in my skin for years, and it discarded them, and I haven't had acne, which is an incredible thing, because I used to say, well, I'm going to go from a tremendous adolescent acne skin all my life until it is completely full of wrinkles. What a frightening thing, right? So we don't have that problem anymore. And the same, like in so many people in a matter of joints, elderly, we have cases of people that had a some arthritis problem so severe that he couldn't even close his hand, and after being on the product for a year, he can now have mobility because all the joints, their lubrication it's influenced by fatty acids, and those fatty acids, again, you lose them with age, and it's what generates all, and it is what generates the whole question of movement, of muscular problems, of arthritis and more, and that is what renews it again. And so many cases, many incredible stories, and for us it is so satisfying because of something that could have been so dramatic, like it's having a son with such a severe problem, like it's a severe autism. Well, God gave us the elements that we could not only to help our son to have carry a normal life, but also now we can help a lot of other people. And what a better incentive for to scientists that, well, our work that, well, as scientists we could have generated all kinds of studies and so on, and never in our life have seen a product development. And now seeing a product that not only helps us personally, but also that is helping hundreds, and I expect thousands and millions of people more on later across the world, because, well, really we all need it. It's part of our diet, and it isn't magical. No, it isn't. As they say, then there are magical syrups that heal everything, and no. This is food. It's a diet, it's a nutritional supplement of one of the ingredients that make up your cell. And because all of us are made of cells, all our bodies, all our organs, our skin, our eyes, our hair, our nails, all, well, everything benefits because it's are the fundamental ingredients. Of course, people that have diets like the Japanese, those in the Mediterranean area that is rich in fatty acids, well, they are going to feel less impact in relation to taking the product because their diet is already rich in fatty acids. Nonetheless, most people today really we don't have that balance of fatty acids. And a very important thing that is part of the investigation, and we have the patent, is that spectrum, the balance, the correlation of one fatty acid with respect to the other. It's very important to create that molecular stability because our cell is not as intelligent as we would like. When you reach an excess of fatty acids, at least one, the cell stops absorbing, so you could have an excess of omega-6 and a deficit of omega-3, or a deficit of uric acid, or different fatty acids that are of this spectrum. So when you're taking a product that is already balanced, you don't have that excess and deficit danger, that because it's no longer absorbing, because, well, you reach the maximum, not only one, but you're absorbing everything at the same time. So your cell maintains that optimal balance that it requires so it can work in a better way. So, well, yes, they have the hope that in a few years or people can say, well, my health is balanced and in a natural way because it's food, it's not medicine. Even from my university students, I'm a teacher in some of the universities in Vancouver, Canada, that they have attention deficit disorder. They have to take medication that is a problem to them because if they can't focus, they feel like robots. But if they don't take it, they are so distracted that they can do their job. Instead, when introducing the product, it has helped them to focus in such a way, in a natural way, that they can do their job, but maintaining their creativity, maintaining that their personality intact. That is many of the cycles of medications that they need. So I hope that we can, in a natural way, our body is super intelligent, we have a power to regenerate incredible. God created an unit inside us wonderful that sadly with many advances in technology at the same time we are hurting our environment, our food source. So retaking that source by ourselves, the products, the elements we use for the production of the product are 100% natural. We ask our providers that they need to give us certification letters that they are organic, that they are cold processed, because that's another problem with that you say, well, I'm going to buy olive oil virgin, but it's not virgin itself because it's hot processed. So if you heat olive oil even a little, it breaks its molecular structure and it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't give you half the properties. So for example, people that say it's that I'm going to cook with olive oil, they're wasting their money because when heated it breaks its structure. Olive oil must be cold processed and used in salads only, like always keeping it in the cold, and like that various other ingredients that we obtain. So we have to have that certification in addition to a laboratory analysis of purity, of toxicity, that it doesn't have toxins. That is also one of the big problems with our supplements today, because we use Pacific wild sardine as our source of omega-6. Almost always when you take omegas that come from fish, they get them from the liver of the fish. The function of the liver is to be the filter of the body, so all the toxins get trapped in there when the fish is eating them. And big fish like tuna, salmon, the cod are very, very big fish that live many years under the sea, and our sea sadly is already full of toxins, the same as the farms. They are very toxic. So when these fish finally are fished, their liver is taken, and with that they get the oil. The oil includes a lot of toxins. We made lab studies of many of the supplements today on the market. Many of them come encapsulated. Why do they encapsulate them? Well, because people prefer to take a pill instead of a spoonful of oil, but mainly because they hide the oil. And we did a test. We took them and opened a capsule, starting with the smell. It's a fetid smell that they have many of those capsules, because the oil is already oxidized. Then it is no longer the quality. Apart that doing laboratory toxicity analysis, there is a lot of toxicity associated with that. So what you're taking for benefit can become in a harmful long-term thing. Besides that layer of where the pill it's encapsulated goes to our liver. So people that have liver problems are hurting themselves with those encapsulations by taking the NeuroActiv that has liquid form. You drink it, you can smell what you're drinking. It's a light oil that, so you can know that it's not oxidized because you are seeing it, you're smelling it, you are tasting it. It has a nice flavor because it's made with natural anise and orange oils, and that keeps its pleasant flavor. No, it's not unpleasant, so we recommend to take it in the morning and in the afternoon, because the different metabolic processes of the body are different. Those that occur during the day, well, it's to pay attention, it's to digest, and others, and at the night it's the question of cell regeneration. Then again, well, it's something very healthy, and I hope that it can that happiness that we obtain with our son, and to get to a normal development level, so many other families can experience it too. Thank you very much.